Welcome to Adu Globe. Discover new ideas, learn exciting things, and be amazed every day. Have you ever imagined an old vehicle, built decades ago, declared obsolete and abandoned in warehouses, suddenly returning to the front lines of the world's biggest war? This is the story of Italy's old M113 armored personnel carriers. Once labeled as obsolete and useless, these machines are now breathing new life into Ukraine's defense. Surprisingly, the same vehicles that were about to be scrapped are now saving soldiers' lives, evacuating the wounded, and shocking the enemy on the front lines against Russia. This is not just the story of an old military vehicle, but proof that true power lies not only in advanced weapons but in strategy and intelligence. So the question is, how did Ukraine transform these old machines into a new force? And can these warhorses really stand against modern weapons? The story of the M113 begins in the early 1960s, when the United States introduced it as one of the first mass-produced armored personnel carriers made with lightweight aluminum armor. Its simple design, low cost, and adaptability turned it into one of the most widely used military vehicles in history. From the jungles of Vietnam to the deserts of the Middle East, the M113 became a symbol of mobility and survival for countless armies. Italy, like many other NATO allies, quickly recognized its value. But Italy did not stop at simply using the American model. They upgraded it into their own unique version, called the VCC-2. This modification included improved armor and better weapon configurations, making it more suitable for Italian military operations during the Cold War era. For decades, the VCC-2 served as a backbone of Italy's mechanized infantry, a quiet guardian in a tense European theater. However, as technology advanced, the old legends began to lose their shine. By 2021, Italy officially declared its fleet of VCC-2 vehicles obsolete. They were retired, stored in depots, and seen as relics of another time, vehicles no longer fit for modern high-tech warfare. Some were scrapped, while others sat gathering dust, silent reminders of a past generation of soldiers and battles. But history has a way of surprising us. What many considered junk would soon find a new life, thousands of miles away. These forgotten machines were not the end of the story. Instead, they became proof of how even outdated technology can gain fresh importance when the world shifts into crisis. For Ukraine, facing a war of survival, the arrival of these Italian M113s would mean far more than just machines. They symbolized resilience, international support, and the idea that even old warriors can still save lives when destiny calls them back to the battlefield. When Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, the battlefield changed overnight. Ukraine suddenly faced the urgent need for hundreds of armored personnel carriers, vehicles that could move troops safely across dangerous frontline zones. And then, a surprising twist unfolded. In Italy, rows of old, forgotten armored carriers, the VCC-2, once declared obsolete and destined for scrap, were still standing quietly inside military depots. To the casual observer, they were nothing but relics of the Cold War, gathering dust and rust. But for Ukraine, they were not just scrap, they were potential lifesavers. What was once considered outdated suddenly became precious. These M113s, Italy's upgraded versions, were strong enough to carry soldiers, withstand small arms fire, and offer protection against battlefield shrapnel. They weren't the most modern or the most advanced, but they were available, and availability meant survival. This was the unexpected irony. Machines that Italy no longer needed, machines once judged too old for modern combat, were now given a second life on Europe's most dangerous battlefield. Vehicles that seemed destined for the scrapyard suddenly found themselves rolling toward the front line, carrying Ukrainian soldiers in their fight for survival. The very machines that symbolized the past became tools of the present, turning Italy's abandoned steel into Ukraine's shield of hope. When Italy finally made its decision, the numbers surprised many. Almost 478 armored carriers, machines that had once been considered outdated, were packed, prepared, and sent to Ukraine. For a country fighting for its survival, this was not just a delivery, it was a lifeline. As these vehicles rolled into Ukraine, they were not simply accepted as they were. Ukrainian engineers and soldiers looked at them with determination. Their philosophy was simple: every machine must adapt to the battlefield of today. Heavy machine guns were mounted on top, turning the carriers into fighting vehicles capable of laying down suppressive fire. Extra armor plates were welded onto the sides, giving protection against shrapnel. Modern communication systems were installed, making coordination faster and stronger. What Italy had once seen as relics, Ukraine transformed into tools of resilience. These upgraded M113s became lifelines carrying soldiers, medics, and supplies straight into danger zones. Each vehicle rolling forward carried more than troops. It carried the symbol of survival, solidarity, and hope. On the modern battlefields of Ukraine, where every day brings new challenges, the Italian-supplied M113s have carved out a role far greater than anyone expected. They are not tanks, and they were never designed to replace tanks, but in many situations these vehicles have proven to be just as valuable, sometimes even more. Their first and most crucial role is transportation. Ukrainian soldiers use the M113 to reach the front line while staying protected from bullets, shrapnel, and artillery fragments. In a war where exposure can mean instant death, the ability to move troops quickly and safely is nothing short of life-saving. Every time one of these carriers rolls forward, it shields its passengers from dangers that lurk in every trench and street. But their mission does not stop there. These vehicles have also become essential for evacuating the wounded. On the battlefields of Kharkiv and Donbas, reports confirm that M113s have been used as improvised ambulances, carrying injured soldiers away from danger and giving them a chance at survival. For many families in Ukraine, the sight of these armored carriers returning with wounded but living sons has meant hope where there was only fear. And then comes their unexpected role in fire support. Armed with heavy machine guns and upgraded weapon systems, the M113s provide covering fire during infantry advances. They are not as powerful as tanks, yet in close-quarter combat and fast-moving engagements, they often prove more practical, lighter, faster, and easier to maneuver through tight villages and muddy fields. This is the curiosity of war. Machines once considered outdated, not fit for modern battle, are now proving indispensable. In Kharkiv's open fields and Donbas' brutal trenches, these armored carriers have shown that being, not a tank, can sometimes be their greatest advantage. They move quickly, adapt easily, and save lives in ways that heavier armor cannot. And so, the M113 has become more than just an old machine. It is now a lifeline, a carrier of soldiers, a rescuer of the wounded, and a symbol of resilience in the toughest battles of Ukraine's modern history. When Italy first handed over the old M113s, Russian state media mocked the decision. Their propaganda channels were quick to label these vehicles as scrap metal, calling them relics of a bygone era, unfit for the battlefield of the 21st century. The message was clear: Ukraine is being given junk, and this will change nothing. But reality on the ground turned out to be very different. Instead of fading into irrelevance, these so-called obsolete carriers have become an unexpected headache for Russian forces. Ukrainian soldiers, known for their adaptability, quickly turned these armored vehicles into effective battlefield tools. With clever tactics, they began deploying M113s in ways the Russians did not anticipate, transporting troops safely under fire, moving supplies through dangerous terrain, and even providing suppressive fire in frontline clashes. The results were surprising. In Kharkiv, Ukrainian infantry used M113s to outmaneuver heavier Russian units, slipping through muddy fields where tanks got stuck. In Donbas, the same vehicles were seen evacuating wounded soldiers right under Russian artillery fire, surviving impacts that should have left them useless. This raises a powerful question. How is it that Russia's modern weaponry, with all its advanced technology, often looks helpless in front of these old warriors? The answer lies not in the machine itself, but in the people who use it. Ukrainian soldiers turned the M113 from a relic into a symbol of resilience and adaptability. Each time one of these carriers rolls into battle, it proves that innovation is not always about the newest design, but about the smartest use of available tools. And that is perhaps the biggest impact on Russia, not just the vehicles themselves, but the morale shift they create. For every Russian unit that fails to stop these obsolete carriers, the myth of invincibility weakens. What was meant to be Ukraine's weakness has become one of its unexpected strengths, leaving Russia to rethink how such old machines can still rewrite the rules of modern war. As we reach the end of this story, one thing becomes crystal clear. War is not only about the latest technology or the biggest guns. True power lies in the hands of those who know how to use what they have with wisdom, strategy, and unshakable courage. The story of Italy's old M113s in Ukraine proves this point like nothing else. Once dismissed as outdated, almost destined for the scrapyard, these armored carriers are now rewriting history on the modern battlefield. They carry soldiers through fire, protect them under relentless shelling, and evacuate the wounded from deadly zones where survival seems impossible. Every mission they complete is more than just a military success, it's a symbol of human resilience, creativity, and determination. This is the dramatic twist. The machines themselves are not extraordinary. What makes them extraordinary is the spirit of the people operating them. Ukrainian forces took what others laughed at and turned it into a frontline hero. This transformation is a reminder to the entire world that innovation is not just about building new weapons, it's about using even the old ones in ways that no one expects. So the big takeaway is simple yet powerful. In war, courage and strategy can often outweigh raw firepower. The M113s may be old, but in the right hands, they have become instruments of hope and survival. And now, I want to leave you with a question. Do you believe that even outdated technology, when placed in the right hands, can change the course of history? Share your thoughts in the comments below, I'd love to hear your perspective. Because at the end of the day, this is not just the story of machines. It is the story of people, their resilience, and the belief that even the most unexpected tools can shape the destiny of nations.